Ah, two from Singapore.
Oh, yeah?
Chung Wat and Benoit.
That's great.
Benoit and Chung Wat.
Okay, Bhante.
Okay. Good morning. Now let us begin our metta meditation. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds. Whatever living beings there may be, without exception, weak or strong, long, large, medium, short, subtle or gross, visible or invisible, living near or far, born or coming to birth, may all beings have happy minds. Let no one deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere, neither from anger nor ill will, should anyone wish harm to another. As a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so towards all living beings, one should cultivate a boundless heart. One should cultivate for all the world a heart of boundless loving friendliness, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hate or resentment, whether standing, walking, sitting, lying down, or whenever awake. One should develop this mindfulness. This is called divinely dwelling here, not falling into erroneous views, but virtuous and endowed with vision. Removing desires for sensual pleasures, one comes never again to birth in the womb. With this metta thought, let us begin our practice of mindfulness. In order not to misunderstand these instructions, please listen very carefully. I try to make it as simple as possible so that everybody can follow. Let us focus our mind on our breath. As we breathe in, we notice the breath touching our nostrils, and then we experience expanding our chest area and our lower abdominal area. As we breathe out, the lower abdominal area contracts, chest area contracts, and we notice the breath leaving our nostrils. And then we breathe like that very attentively, not using any words or concepts, simply paying attention, mindful attention. That means without greed, hatred, or delusion. And then we notice at the same time the feeling of breath, perception of breath, attention or thought, intentional attention of breath, and consciousness. They all, we notice, they arise so quickly, you cannot identify them, separate them, isolate them. They all arise as we breathe in, and they all disappear as we breathe out. Then we have new feeling of exhaling, new perception of exhaling, new perception of attention, and new feeling of consciousness. All of them are changing, they are new. As you breathe in, then again, inhaling, feeling, perception, thought, and awareness of consciousness arise and pass away. They happen all the time. Only when we pay attention can we notice them happening. Otherwise, even though they happen, we don't notice them. Then, as we breathe in and out, you notice there is a very brief pause. We don't try to exaggerate the pause or widen it or manipulate it. You just let it happen and pay attention to your breathing, feeling, and so on. As they keep changing, you are still focusing your mind on the breath. Other things becomes not very clear. And then there also is nothing to excite. So there is nothing to hold on to. Just breathe in and breathe out. You don't stop the breath. You just become aware of the breath arising and passing. Everything is arising and passing. Some of them become conspicuous, others become inconspicuous. That's all you notice. Some becomes more prominent or clearer, others don't become clearer and less prominent. So when one is prominent, be aware of it, and when it disappears, another may be prominent, then others will disappear. So when this happens, you naturally let that happen without trying to hold on to anything. That is your letting go of practice. That is letting go of the desire to hold on to anything. And we call in crude terms as hindrance, kama chanda. And then since we do this practice with metta, our resentment or friction will fade away, uptightness, rigidity all fade away, because we notice as we breathe in and out, our breath becomes calm, relaxed and peaceful. The body becomes calm, relaxed and peaceful. Mind becomes calm, relaxed and peaceful. There is no room for rigidity, uptightness and resentment. Then our metta feeling becomes prominent. With that feeling, continue to breathe in and out. And then there will arise a moment of our purpose, that is, we start all this practice for seeing and hearing of suffering beings suffering from this COVID-19, and we want to wish them to be free from that pain, suffering, and return to normal. That time compassion arises in our mind. The thought of cruelty will fade away. And then, since we see this happening very clearly, restlessness and worry fades away, and then arises a moment of disappearance of doubt, seeing these results. With this we experience joy, happiness. All these are in a rudimentary form, not very strong, because the practice is very short. But if you do this practice longer time, you will see all of them happening more clearly and durable. And then we gain concentration. From joy, we experience happiness. Mind and body becomes even more relaxed and calm. Gain concentration. When we gain concentration, we don't lose our breath. Breath also will be there. In fact, concentration unites with the breath, and we keep breathing in and out with the concentrated state of mind. There you don't lose all this, you just become aware of them happening. So quickly they change, so many things happen in a fraction of a second. So many things. So what you see, all your the moment of your awareness, or when you are aware, when you are conscious, when you pay attention, all you see is one thing or another rising and falling, rising and falling, rising and falling. Constantly they happen. This is real, this is true, not artificial or imaginary. And then mind becomes even calmer and more relaxed, seeing that everything in our experience is rising, falling, rising, falling. It is very unlikely that you fall asleep if you pay mindful attention to this rising, falling experience. This is called Udaya Bhaya Jnana. Udaya means rising, Vaya means falling, knowledge and vision or understanding of rising and falling. This is very important in Vipassana meditation. With this, I like to be silent so we all can practice and experience this. Today I spent a little longer time in order to make it even clearer. Dukkha patthaca nidukkha, bhaya patthaca nibhaya, soka patthaca nisoka, hontu sabbe pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. So too may all beings be. With this wish for peace and happiness of all beings, we like to answer questions. My friend Brian will read the question and I will answer them. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, Bhante. I have a question regarding desire. What exactly is desire? There is bad desire, such as violent intent or selfish desire, in other words, greed. But what about wholesome desire, such as achieving positive dreams with good intent or desire to help the poor? Is good desire considered a demerit? If the Dhamma teaches, is good desire considered a demerit if the Dhamma teaches complete desirelessness?
Yeah. I would not say good desire is demeritorious. A good desire is, I call, wholesome desire. Wholesome desire is desire to be desireless, serving the world, helping the poor. Actually, these days people are doing a lot of wonderful things to help the people who are suffering from COVID-19. All this they do without expecting anything in return. Doing something without expecting anything in return is wholesome, but you have a desire to do that. You have a desire to do desireless, selfless work. In fact, it is this desire that we cultivate to let go of our unwholesome desire. Uh, Desire for pleasure, sensual pleasure, re-becoming, and to destroy ourselves and so forth. These are not considered to be wholesome desires. Wholesome desire is to liberate ourselves from desire. Liberating from ourselves from desire is called attaining Nibbana. Even to attain Nibbana, we have to make a firm commitment and we have to have a desire. In Pali, it is called Tannaka Rati. Tannaka Rati hoti Nibbana seva santike. Tannaka Rati, as I mentioned yesterday, Rati is another name for desire. Tannaka Rati means desire for destroy, tanna, craving. Desire for destroying the craving is a desire, but that is the desire required for attaining liberation, attaining Nibbana. And therefore it is a wholesome desire that we have to cultivate until we attain that state of freedom from desire. Then there is no desire whatsoever. It is very interesting when we do something with desire, we end up with desire. When we start something without desire, then we come to end of desire. So it is very interesting. You can see the the truth in it. I don't say logic, but the truth. Truth is when you start without desire. When you achieve the end, there is no desire. When you practice with desire to gain something, you keep perpetuating your desire and more gaining for something more and more and more. And always you feel something is missing, something is missing. That kind of nagging desire is no longer there when you start without desire. And you end the attain liberation and in peace without desire. And therefore wholesome desire is to be cultivated. Unwholesome desire is to let go. Okay.
Thank you, Bhante. Dear Bhante Ji, in your kind instructions for breathing meditation every day, I hear that after focusing on inhalation and exhalation, and when it appears that the breath is impermanent, the mind lets go of holding on to the breath. At this point, body and mind are relaxed and we attain concentration. Then we are supposed to continue contemplating on feeling, perception, etc. Since I do not feel the breath at this point, what do I use to focus on feeling, perception, etc.? Am I supposed to think about them without focusing on any object? Thank you.
Okay. I think that also is a good question. Uh, in today's instructions I mentioned, something or other you experience rising and falling and rising and falling. From the beginning, we must notice the breath rising and falling, feeling rising and falling, perception rising and falling, thought rising and falling, consciousness rises and falls, and all we see in this meditation is nothing but rising and falling, rising and falling. If you feel something, see rising and falling in that feeling. If you feel your breath, you can see the rising and falling of breath and rising and falling of the feeling of the breath. Whenever you have a thought, you see the rising and falling of thought, see the rising and falling your attention, see when it disappears, something else you notice. That also rises and falls. Whatever you notice, I mentioned many things. Inhaling, exhaling, the gap between inhaling and exhaling, feeling, perception, thought, consciousness, they all I mentioned. And all of them, you can notice one or the other, one moment or another, one of them or the other will be there. You cannot have a moment without any of these things in the mind. One or the other will be there, and become aware of that particular thing rising and falling, rising and falling. And that is what is happening all the time in our entire life. Inside, friends, you never find one atom in our body, one cell in our body resting, fixed and stays there until unless it is dead. Even the dead cell also is changing until it ejected from the body through various the passing, defecating, urinating, sweating, and breathing, and so forth. Through these things, even the dead cells will vanish, and of course, new cells may arise and they die, and so forth. So everything inside us, physical and mental, All are rising and falling, rising and falling. I don't want to draw your attention to your physics, chemistry, biology. You learn any science, any subject of related to the body or related to outside, they all are changing all the time. Only thing is we are not aware of them, therefore we don't know. And therefore, friends, when in this meditation, what I am emphasizing every day is for us to become aware of rising and falling, something or other. So, why is that? Because when we see this, we don't fall into one extreme or the other. That means, I think I mentioned this sometimes ago, when we see something only rising and rising, then there can be a notion of permanency, eternity, something eternal. Or if you see always something falling, then you don't see anything rising, then you will have a sort of nihilism, negative, always nothing exists. So everything exists or nothing exists are two extremes. The truth is something exists and passes away, something exists and passes away, something exists and passes away. We can see both rising, we can see falling, we can see, and in between whatever we think is present also is not existing, it is not fixed. Even the present moment is changing moment. And this is you can see in a very gross way in your breathing, and you can see in a subtle way when your breath is silent. Breath doesn't stop. We hear sometimes even suttas we read, like in Chula Vedala Sutta and so forth. When you attain the fourth jhana, your breath stops. Friends, breath does not stop. Does not stop. If breath stops, we die. With this body needs oxygen. The breath brings oxygen. The breath does not stop. What happens in the fourth jhana? Breath becomes so soft, gentle, subtle, and the mind becomes so peaceful. There is no any attempt, and the breath is going on in and out. Only thing is we don't notice it at all. We don't notice at all. That's what happened. But we cannot say breath is completely does not exist, disappeared, finished, never arises. We cannot say that. Breath is going on in a most subtle way without our awareness noticing or feeling. And therefore, when we are awake, alert, mindful, conscious, we notice something or other happening in our mind and body. So you notice that. Don't think that I ask you to imagine something or bring something from outside to pay attention to, but I am suggesting always pay attention to the rising and falling. Why is that? Because we are so attached to this body, so attached to feelings, perception, and so forth. When you see this rising and falling all the time, we understand the truth, true nature, see things as they really are. That is what we want to do. When we are going to die, even at the last moment, we want to hold on to our property, for our wealth, for our popularity, for our the spouses, children, and so forth. And the death would be very agonizing, very painful. If we learn this truth at the moment of death, all we experience is peace. In peace, we can let go of this body, let go of these families, let go of these properties, relatives, spouses, and this and that. Easily we can do that. So I hope I answered that question. Another question?
Yes, Bhante.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever we get, the feeling of satisfaction does not last. On the other hand, there seems to be an end to relinquishment. With relinquishment, there would seem to come a point where there is no desire, no craving left. There is nothing more to let go of. If this is so, is this the end of suffering? Is relinquishment a door to Nibbana?
Exactly. That is very true. That is true. Relinquishment is another name for attaining Nibbana. Etam santang etam panitam yadidam sabba sankara samato sabbopadi patinisaggo. Patinisagga means relinquishing all the assets, all the clinging, all the properties, relinquish. That relinquishment itself is called Nibbana, total relinquishment. Yeah.
Thank you, Bhante.
Another question.
You mentioned that craving is the second noble truth, cause for suffering. I have learned that raga, desha, and moha are the cause for suffering. Does craving mean raga, or is craving only related to the samsara that means only related to the rebirth, since rebirth causes suffering? What is the difference between raga and craving? Is craving the reason for all of these three poisons? Could you please explain this to us?
Yes, that was a good question. In yesterday's, before I spoke yesterday, I gave a list of names that are used for craving. One of them is rag. Even today I mentioned Dhammarag, Dhammarati. Raga is another name for craving. Craving is one poison. Hatred is one poison. Delusion is one poison. So, greed, hatred, and delusion are three poisons. Whatever other names used for greed, all of them are poison of greed. Whatever name we use for hatred, all of them are hated poison, poison of hatred. Whatever name we use for delusion, all of them are delusion poison. So, all these are poisons. Surely, no matter what name you use, for greed, you can use in Pali tanna, raga, lobha, abhijja, sineha, fear, rati, kama, chanda, nati, and so forth. Many names are there. All of them are the names of the same thing, but all of them are poison. Whether you call the rose by another name, the fragrance of rose is rose fragrance.
Thank you. That's the good simile. Okay, let's see. Here's a fairly common question. As a lay person who is drawn to the Dhamma and meditation, how does one reconcile this with enjoying the joy, beauty, and pleasures of the lay world, beauty of nature, art, music, dance. I would like to know how I reconcile this. At present, I enjoy the aware, momentary awareness of impermanence and trying not to cling to that feeling. I'd love to know Bhante Ji's view.
Okay. I don't have personal view. I simply want to explain Dhamma. I talk only from the Dhamma points of view. Dhamma points of view means the points of view of the truth. Truth doesn't have a view. Truth is truth. It is true that ordinarily people who have not eradicated their desire, they enjoy various things through their six senses. Yesterday I mentioned 60 places where craving arises. You mentioned some of them like seeing and so forth. If you mindfully watch, you enjoy every sense: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind. Form, sound, smell, taste, touch and thought. You enjoy all of them. There's no question about it. And that is how we create the world. Enjoying through our senses, we create our own world. And we live in this world. We become attached to that world. We crave that world. And we say we enjoy the world and so forth. All we use, these names we use to express the same thing, the way how we learn to perpetuate our desire, the way how we learn to justify our desire, the way how we try to cheat ourselves. When I use this word, don't get offended. This is how, because of our ignorance, this is how we try to justify our craving or desire. You said you have a glimpse of impermanence, and you like that very much, or attached to that. You cannot become attached to impermanence because that attachment also impermanent. Whatever you are trying to cling to, whatever is impermanent, if you try to cling to that, that clinging also is impermanent because the object that you cling to is impermanent. When it is gone, your attachment also impermanent. What is left behind that is your pain, your suffering, because something you are enjoying and it disappears, then you left behind with suffering, pain. And therefore don't try to become attached even to impermanence. Let impermanence be impermanent, and the one who watches impermanence also is impermanent, and therefore all you notice is impermanence. The consciousness you notice impermanence, feeling you have when you are watching is impermanent. Just see impermanence is all pervasive, everywhere, everything. And that, keeping that in mind, you live a life. Eat, drink, make friends, and travel and so forth, all the time, without being pessimistic, without being depressed. Just be mature and insightful and wise to see, yes, this food is very tasty. It is not permanent taste, it is impermanent. Tomorrow again I have to eat. Evening again I have to eat. Whenever I am hungry, I have to eat, and so forth. Anytime you eat something, you see the taste and feel the taste, and yet at the same time notice impermanence of that taste. you can easily notice the impermanence of that taste even while you are eating. When you are seeing something, you can notice impermanence because in your mind, the object that you see slowly become distasteful. Because when you see the same thing over and over again, impermanence also is working, then you lose interest in that particular thing. Sound, smell, taste, and everything is like that. This is what is a common word, common language, say diminishing return.
Mm.
Diminishing return. You cannot make anything permanent. So you have to notice that and understand that with that understanding you can live. Okay, another question.
Let's see. I can't. One moment. Huh. For some reason, I'm not able to unmute this person who wanted to ask you, but she just typed her question.
Mm-hmm.
Lord Buddha never asked not to enjoy good things, but if we know it's impermanent, is it okay?
Now, the Lord Buddha never asked us not to do anything. But he said, if this is done, this is the result. It is like just like uh, in physics you learn when when you throw something in the air, that will fall. You don't have to pray for that. You just throw, it will fall. Similarly, Buddha said, if you do this, this will be the result. And he never said, don't do this, don't do this. If you do this, I put you to hell. He never said that. He never said that. He simply said, if you do this will be the result. You decide. You decide. So, uh, this is the beauty of the Buddha's teaching. Uh, he was not the creator or God or giving commandments, thou shalt not such and such. He simply said, if you do this, this will be the results. So he gave us 100% personal freedom, freedom of thought, freedom of work, and therefore we have to be wise to make right decision from our personal experience. And that is the nature of Dhamma. Dhamma is personally realizable by the wise and immediately effective, personally realizable, 100% private. So, your question is, Lord Buddha asked her to do this. He did not ask. You take the precept, you say for instance, Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to abstain from killing. I undertake. I undertake. I undertake the precept to abstain from stealing. I undertake it. So the responsibility is yours. Responsibility is in the person who does the thing. The Buddha doesn't take any responsibility. Or nobody else can take responsibility. We individuals take the responsibility. This is a 100% personal uh, liberation or freedom. And so Buddha gave an advice to the whole world impersonally. Of course, when somebody comes to the Buddha with question, even then Buddha did not tell the person, You should have not done that. You should not do this, 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 this. Then he asked, when somebody came with all kind of problems, Buddha ask him, did you say such and such? If he has to admit, when he admits, where have you learned this from? I did not tell you that. Then he addressed the bhikkhus. Bhikkhus, this is what happens when such and such a thing is done. This is what happened. Like dependent origination, for instance, that I am teaching now. When this is no person involved in it. There is no person involved in it. When this is, this is. When this is not, this is not. When this arises, this arises. When this does not arise, this does not arise. It's a very natural, normal, universal, impersonal principle, he taught. Friend, I think this may be enough. Thank you very much for asking these very mind-stimulating questions. Thank you. And I want to conclude this today's session, wishing once again, there are so many people, some of them are my friends, suffering from COVID-19, and countries, places that is affected, that are affected by this COVID-19. We want all of them, very sincerely, we want to wish all of them to be free from this virus and come back to very normal health and live long in good health. There are people who have lost their loved ones, friends, spouses, relatives, and so on. They are still grieving over their death. May they be free from that grief. And there are some people who are supporting them, supporting those patients, doctors, nurses, and hospital staffs, medical teams. They do their service very compassionately and with wonderful intention, metta. May they be strong and continue their noble work. There are others who are supporting financially. There are others who are trying to find some solution, like finding vaccines. There are some leaders, good leaders, who have foresight, wisdom, understanding to make right decisions to help people. Unfortunately, there are some leaders who don't have that kind of wisdom, understanding, even compassion, had to have a fair mind to come to a very wholesome, insightful decisions. We want to wish them to have wisdom, courage, understanding, and forget all the differences and come up with good solutions to help these people. With this very wholesome thought, we all together, I have seen many of my friends in various countries, they join this noble practice, and we want all of them, everyone, to be free from suffering and liberate from samsara, attain nibbana. May they live long in very good health and peace. Thank you